pleased to introduce Leslie Alden, Chief Instigator, Executive Director, and co-founder of DrawdownBayArea, whose singular mission is to empower actions that will reduce the Bay Area's greenhouse gas emissions 80% by 2030 and make the region fossil-free by 33. That is 12 years from now. Leslie brings a multidisciplinary approach to moving climate action policies forward, as well as environmental legislation at the state and federal level. She has 25 years of experience in the public sector and 15 years working on climate solutions, including the successful launch of California's first community choice energy program, MCE Clean Energy. Believing that we cannot adapt our way out of the impacts of climate disruption, Leslie's work is focusing on implementing solutions that reduce greenhouse gas emissions at speed and scale by leveraging the collaborative power of the private sector, government, and the community. Please welcome Leslie Alden.
Wow, thank you so much for that introduction, Karen. I really appreciate that. This is such a difficult time, and it was such a powerful movie, and it's a serious topic that I'd start off with something maybe slightly humorous here on a lighter note. But first I want to thank everyone who's here tonight. I think I'm going to move to Rossmore. Enough with Marin County. You guys are amazing, and I'm very familiar with some of the people on this call. Linda and Dean and Lisa are just such great leaders, and it's really a pleasure to be here tonight. And I want to thank, I know how hard it is to pull something like this together and what a lot of work goes on behind the scenes. So I just want to thank everyone who's been a part of this and everyone who's shown up tonight. Really knocked out by some of the comments that all of you have made. And I kind of don't even need to do this presentation because you already know all this stuff. But I'm going to start on a slightly more serious note and ask all of you to close your eyes for just a moment. Imagine you're facing an immediate emergency, something you have never been through before. Maybe it's a serious earthquake or an avalanche, and there are people around you who are hurt badly, and you have no idea what to do. You don't have any emergency training, no real skills to deal with the situation. What do? Do you feel overwhelmed and scared? Do you freeze? Do you shut down? Do you try to do something, anything, even if it might be the wrong thing, or at best, not very helpful? Do you just hope and pray that someone will come along who actually does know what they're doing, who can save you and the people around you? Uh-oh, I'm not advancing. There we go. The reason I asked that question is because we've been confronted, as all of you mentioned, we've been confronted with this problem and the science around the problem for decades, and not much has changed. So you may already know what drawdown means, and I'm not going to read the slide to you, but it boils down to essentially two things. We have to stop putting greenhouse gas emissions up into the atmosphere, and we have to start drawing down the stuff that's already up there, the legacy emissions that will be there for generations, even if we drastically reduce emissions right now. So the work of Project Drawdown, which you may be familiar with, has become an organizing principle for science-based solutions. And one of the things about the movie that I found a little bit frustrating, but it was actually a really good sort of underscoring of the problem, is that they talked a lot about the science and the data and how great the data is, and how the data that they have now will be useful for hundreds of years. And that's wonderful, but we need the science behind the solutions to stand up as strongly as the science behind the problem. So the key piece, I think, is that people need to hear that there's hope, and that 50% of the people on this call tonight feel like they don't really have any hope is a hard one for me to hear. I like that 8% of you wanted someone to pass the popcorn, but another 42% are in that better than not hopeful at all, right? They're hopeful, or they're you know, kind of hopeful, or maybe hopeful. That's 42%. So I'm going to take that, and I think that what we were hearing, what we were talking about a few minutes ago is that we can do something. We do have solutions. And that means that while things are bad right now, we also have a way forward. We have a way through this emergency. So the word drawdown was inspired by the book by that name. And it was really nice to see Paul Hawken interviewed for the film. He's one of my professional crushes. He knows that. You don't have to, it's not a secret. But what I particularly liked was one of his quotes. "The odds are long. I agree, but I'll take those odds." There's hope in that statement. And that's what people, all of us, need to have. And apparently I need to do that. There we go. Okay, so what is possible? Again, I'm not going to read the slide. You guys can see it. But as Paul said, the odds are long. The criteria, in my opinion, must be focused on the two things that we keep at the forefront of these conversations. Stop using fossil fuels for energy and do everything we can to sequester what is already up in the atmosphere. And as much as I'm intrigued by some of the ideas in the film and the possibilities of these new technologies, we don't have time to wait for them to be proven and funded, to come online and to scale to the level that they have to be scaled to actually make a difference. That said, I'm not discounting them in the least. I think we need everything. And if it's in the pipeline and they can make it work in 10 years or 15 years, great. That will be another piece of the puzzle that we're going to need to solve the problem. So I'm all for it, but we don't have time to wait for them. We need to be doing things now. I mean, like really, the bionic leaf. Did you guys catch the bionic leaf? Wow, but no, not this year, right? And not this decade. So any solution must significantly reduce emissions, must be cost effective, and it has to be technically or technologically and politically feasible. So we can, I think that all of you, I was hearing this, we have solutions right now, we just don't quite know what to do, right? So the idea of implementing solutions and engaging everyone was something that we worked on in Marin County, as I think maybe was mentioned. We launched Drawdown Marin in 2017 as a community-wide campaign to do exactly what we're talking about here tonight. Like, how do we get the word out? How do we get people involved? I believe it was the first of the numerous now drawdowns that are popping up all over the world, which is really exciting. And after launching that pilot of Drawdown Marin, some colleagues and I were talking about how do we make this regional and scale the concept regionally to really get everyone involved across all of the different sectors, wherever they are, at whatever level they're engaged, right? So it's not just if you've got a lot of money and you could buy a Tesla or put solar on your roof. There are lots of other approaches and solutions. And we wanted to start exploring that and find out where the gaps were. So we brought together about 50 people, this is in 2019, and we asked the question, like, what do you need and what can we do? What can we do as a region to start moving things forward faster? So we had people from the public agencies, from nonprofits, from academia, scientists, business associations. And what we heard was loud and clear, help, because everyone is overworked and under-resourced and overextended. And what was clear that there was a lot of great work being done and lots of different approaches to implementing climate solutions, science, technical solutions, community organizing, which God knows we need more of, nonprofits that were doing amazing work, and government efforts with planning and with policy changes. So this is what we need to do, right? But it seems overwhelming, and it is, it's a lot. So what I want to talk about a little bit is really how we communicate about this, how we share what we know and how we learn from others, maybe others who are not at all like us. We have a lot to learn across our demographics, across our sectors. We have a lot to learn from people on the front lines in the healthcare world, from people who are working and tinkering with technology, from business owners who are just trying to keep the doors open. and planners in the town center, in your community that are just trying to make sure that, you know, they're doing their job and serving the public. So the language and the messaging that has been used for the last 30 years, as one of my friends said, we've been screaming from the rooftops for 30 years. And I said, maybe it's the screaming that was the problem. We now have people's attention, I think, far more than we did even 5 years ago or 3 years ago. And that was brought up, you know, it's the fires, the smoke, the health issues, the drought, all of these, and that's global. It's not just here in California, although obviously we're so impacted here, but we're seeing it globally in a way that we haven't before. Farmers are seeing it. The oyster fisherman, or I guess he was a different kind of fisherman before he became an oyster fisherman, and was suggesting that we could do kelp farming. I mean, that's a transition in how someone's looking at his own economic well-being and for his community and for his family. Wow, that's kind of brilliant. Can it be scaled? Probably. But is our group of advocates and activists talking to people like that? Are we learning from him and people like him? So I really encourage all of us to think about how we communicate, what it is we want people to hear, and we need to listen. So I think that's really what it takes to move the dial, but we'll see. We have an incredible amount of data, as I was saying a few minutes ago, you know, and as we saw in the film. But I think the drawdown approach is the science behind the solutions, not just the science behind the problem. And we now have the public awareness, and we have pretty broad consensus that there is a problem, right? The Yale Climate Communication Center has tracked this for decades, or at least a decade, and about 66% of the people in the United States are either very worried or very concerned about climate change. That's 2/3, and that's true here in the Bay Area. So we know we have solutions, and we can fix this, at least if we all do our part, right? So back to the research and the science. Research shows that showing people research doesn't work. And we know this because a researcher said it. Someone tonight said, you know, the problem is more about human psychology and less about the science and the data. And I think there's real truth in that. These are headlines from about 5 years ago. And someone else talked about the media, and I want to bring that up as well. The media has been pretty good, sort of, sometimes, about talking about reports that come out or disastrous situations that happen. They haven't been good, and I hope this is changing and we can help that. When they say, here's the problem, they're not pairing that with, and here are some solutions, right? So I think that that's another piece that we can also have an impact on as people in our communities, is not only informing our neighbors and writing letters to the editor, but really sitting on top of some of those journalists and saying, hey, really helpful, so glad you're talking about the problem. We really need your help getting the story out about solutions that people can take in our communities. But people really don't know what to do. Most people, including many of the people we elect, the people in charge, the people who run businesses, us, our neighbors, we all ask, what can I possibly do? This is a global problem. It's overwhelming. It's terrifying. And I got to feed my kids and get to work. And really, what can I do that will make any difference? It's such a huge problem. But I think we can all do something. And if everyone did something, imagine what the 7.7 million people here in the Bay Area could accomplish. I mean, if we work together, 7.7 million people, 9 counties, 101 cities, and we have a bit of a reputation for leading on things. We need to come together in that sort of school spirit way and say, yeah, Bay Area proud, we can lead this from so many different perspectives. And the challenge is real, but there is a lot of activity. It is fragmented. We are preaching to the choir, but we have this vision of what we can accomplish in this decade, and we have to, right? A dramatic reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and significant drawing down of legacy emissions. We have a path, right? We have collaborative leadership. We're going to build political will. The market forces are going to send the price signals, and we drive that. We drive both business and we drive our politicians. We're in charge here. So we have an enormous amount of power to make change happen. So let's, in the next 4 or 5 years, let's say we can do all that. What happens from, let's say, a couple of years from now to the end of this decade? We need to change human behavior. 98% of the problem is caused by human behavior. So we have to change human behavior. And we've got to scale at speed, baby, to reduce those greenhouse gas emissions. And by 2030, we will be able to look back and say, okay, we are on the path. We are on our way. We have a path forward. Now, you saw those headlines from a few years back. These are headlines from the last week. So we're making progress, right? This is exciting stuff. Petaluma, God bless them and kudos. They passed the first, then they got international recognition. This is an article that was printed in The Guardian, which is from the UK. They got international press for being the first in America to ban new gas stations. California took the first step on building decarbonization. That's getting gas out of our buildings, our homes. We are talking about smart grids, which is, I think it was Eleanor that brought that up, and reach codes, which means going beyond what the state is mandating, doing more than is the minimum required. So kudos to Petaluma and Berkeley and San Francisco, all of you. Kudos to our community choice energy programs, MCE and East Bay Community Energy and Peninsula Clean Power and Sonoma Clean. I mean, the list goes on. From our humble start 11 years ago when we launched Marine Clean Energy, there are now 24 operational CCAs in the state of California serving 11 million people. That's a paradigm shift, right? Hold on to that thought. We can keep doing this. And kudos to the state of California. And one of the things I hope I don't forget to mention at the end, voting is very important. So here we're going to do another poll. I hope I've jazzed you up a little bit. We're going to do another poll because we don't have a lot of time in this decade. And I think, Lisa, there we go. So how hopeful are you that the Bay Area will be able to address climate change and avert the worst impacts? Ooh, come on, you guys. I'm liking this. This is great. Oh, okay. Someone's not very hopeful. We're gonna move you along here. We're gonna keep you with us. This is terrific. I don't know how many, I hope all of you are, okay, 100% answered. That's awesome. So we went from globally, we're not very hopeful, 50% they were not very hopeful globally. And here we are, 50% are saying, okay, at least we're somewhat hopeful in the Bay Area, we can do this. Look at the percentage there, over what, 45% are very hopeful or hopeful. So let's go. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And you can close the poll. Someone can close the poll. Maybe I'll just do that. So here's the big idea, right? A regional approach. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, okay, hang on. Okay, there we go. Eliminate fossil fuels, electrify everything with renewable energy, and sequester carbon in the landscape. We can do that here. Everyone can do that. What does that take? To move this quickly, we have to share best practices so that we reduce duplication of effort. We leverage existing efforts, right? We put the spotlight, and what's working, we all do it. We promote equitable solutions so that everyone is coming with us, and we accelerate the adoption of policies that will make change happen. That's a critical point. So what's this going to take? I don't know. For some reason, it's not moving. There we go. Okay. Concerted citizen action, that's us. Proactive business engagement, that's also us. And strategic government collaboration. Guess what? Spoiler alert, that's us too. So this is hard times. It's heavy lifting. There's a Talmudic expression that I really like. You are not required to finish the work, nor are you allowed to put it down. Sometimes that's what it takes for me to get up out of bed in the morning, because this is big, this is daunting. So we need the political leadership and political will, and we drive that. We need to encourage, support, and push for technical expertise and financing. Those incentives that someone brought up, rebates, how do we pay for this? And we need an engaged community that's really moving forward to have more broad behavior change. Hang on, I'm just talking away and not looking at my notes. So telling people that there's a problem, as we were saying a few minutes ago, and that they're causing it, like they're to blame, is not the best way to change behavior. I think we all know that. Anyone who has a child knows this. And this is something that, you know, gets people pretty irate. And we're very polarized, as you all know. So dealing with climate change is a particularly vexing problem for elected officials. Their constituents want good roads, and they want safe neighborhoods, and they want great schools and a clean environment and low taxes, and they want all of that now, right? How can all of us, as Kate Scow in the movie said, see ourselves as the helpers who can help the helpers? Like, this is, you've been in these meetings, you've heard these people, you've seen these videos. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard to listen. It's hard to be the recipient of this anger. How do we come back with that without being defensive, without getting angry and frustrated or giving up ourselves? So I think we need new ways of communicating. I think we have to recognize that we have different experiences, different fears. We think differently. Our brains are different. We have different skills, and we have different abilities and different priorities. This is not the best way to communicate. The first challenge, I think, is to talk to each other and listen. Really listen to people who might have a very different experience. In that way, we build much broader alliances and create collaborative partnerships, and we can then move at the speed of trust, which I think has been missing, not because of anyone here, but we've just gotten quite polarized. So as we present the problems, we also have to offer the solutions, where people understandably get overwhelmed and just shut down. I mean, it's human nature, and I think we've all experienced that. So this is a really fast, I promise not to give you data, but this is it. 25% of our regional greenhouse gas emissions come from the electricity that we generate and that we use in our residences and our commercial buildings. Transportation is 41%. That's huge. So we need to tackle those two. A lot of other things can happen, but those are the big ones. At Drawdown Bay Area, we're trying to give people agency to take action right where they are at whatever level, whether they're experienced or completely new, and make it easy for them to take the very first steps. What can you do right now that's going to make your life a little better and not give you trouble, not cost you anything, maybe even save you some money, right? Someone mentioned transitioning to more of a plant-based diet. A lot of us try to ride our bicycles more. Signing up for 100% renewable energy through your energy provider. These are all things that people can do right now. And that's the first step. That's the first step. And then maybe they'll feel comfortable taking another step. And then the next one after that. So these are some of the things that we all know we need to be doing. This is uncharted territory, really. And there's a push-pull that we have to work with, I think. Half of the equation is government policy, and the other half is market, market forces. And I really believe that people drive both of those. So how do we give business and contractors and our local policies, how do we get them all to respond to market demand, our demands, making it easy for people to do what they probably already want to do or interested in doing or might do, and making it easy for them to get engaged, I think is our biggest hurdle right now. And we're working on it. So in our homes and buildings, we need to remove our gas infrastructure. As we replace our old appliances, we need to require that all of the new ones are electric. Heat pumps instead of furnaces and air conditioning, induction stoves instead of gas stoves. In our transportation, we need to expand the EV infrastructure and encourage people to pledge that their next vehicle will be electric. And by the way, I encourage all of you to look into Drive Clean Bay Area. Their website has like 60 different models and makes and all kinds of incentives and information about how to become an EV driver. So, and we need to follow Petaluma's lead and ban new gas stations as well, while we're at it. So getting out of the buildings and out of the cars and into our gardens, how do we start drawing down carbon? There were some good examples, some great examples in the film that I think we can all start really doing, whether we have a balcony or a backyard, or we can create a community garden. Planting trees, as you saw in the movie and you probably already know, participants can now see my application. I don't know what that means. We can grow our gardens, we can grow food, we can share that food. We can protect wetland habitat, because wetlands are actually an extraordinary sequestration habitat that pulls carbon out of the atmosphere. And to that same thought, we need to protect our parks and our forests. And all of us can learn more about sustainable landscape as well as water management. So what else? We can support these things like using biochar. We can start adding compost to agriculture and rangeland. A 1/4 inch of compost. This was more science, more teaching and learning. The Marin Carbon Project added a 1/4 inch of compost to their rangeland and completely changed the ability of the plants on the range, their ability to pull down carbon and store it in the roots of the plants. It's amazing. And there is the Carbon Cycle Institute that's working across California and beyond to start putting these practices that we know about biochar and composting and different ways of farming that are actually game changers. So I urge all of you to stay curious, keep exploring, talk with others, share what you know, learn from others, and get involved with people who are not already in the choir. So just a tiny bit about Drawdown Bay Area and our thinking. Our logo kind of says it all. And you can sort of see that these 3 sectors, these 3 circles are interwoven. But they're doing their own thing, but there's a point in the center where they connect, right? There's that intersection. We don't believe that we live and work in isolation. And we see that intersection where people, ideas, and lives overlap, where community, business, and government can and must work together. So our logo represents all of that. And we're really committed to working across sectors, making the connections that help people take the climate actions that work for them, because frankly, we all have a part to play. We all have a role. This is what it looks like, kind of big. I don't expect you to even read this, but you can sort of see there's lots and lots of wins. So here are some of our partners with Drawdown Bay Area, obviously Project Drawdown. We're also really engaged with the business world. Business has been left out. Someone mentioned that big business isn't doing much. Actually, big business is doing a lot. They have a lot of money to do a lot. It's the smaller businesses, and which is most of our businesses, our medium and small businesses, they're the ones that are just trying to make payroll, get the widgets produced out the door to their clients. That's an area where we really need to help and teach, right? And make it easy. The Climate Center is a terrific organization. They are moving on policy in a big way. If you go to the Drawdown Bay Area website, you can download the Climate Action Now app, which is free. And it gives you things that you can do on your phone while you're waiting for coffee at Starbucks, assuming we are ever going to be in Starbucks again, waiting for our coffee. But we might, it could happen soon. You don't know. Anyway, Drive Clean Bay Area is also phenomenal. I encourage those of you who are interested in anything to do with electric vehicles, check them out. They are a huge partner, really well coordinated, thoughtful, and they're working around the Bay Area. So someone else said individual actions lead to creating a movement. How important our individual actions are. I could not agree more. We can't wait for others to do it. We all have to be doing something. So there's this, the familiar proverb, to go fast, go alone, and to go far, go together. But, I think we understand we need to go far and we need to go fast also. And collaboration is really the key to doing that. So what's possible really depends on the choices we make and how brave we are and how persistent we are, and that we really link arms and reach out and keep the ball moving forward. I think that 2030, I think we can reduce our emissions by 80% by 2030. And my target is, because it just sounds good, fossil-free by 33. So that's the game plan. And I'm just thrilled to see all of you. And I want to hear more. I want to hear your thoughts and really kind of get a little bit more engaged with what's happening in Contra Costa. Sounds like you guys are doing an awful lot. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Leslie.
I went a little long. I'm so sorry. I apologize.
I know it is already 8 p.m. and we promised to let you all out. So feel free to head out if you'd like, but we would love for you to stay and ask a few questions for Leslie if you have any, and learn a bit more about what you can do. So we will open it up. Again, feel free to pose your questions in the chat room or raise your hand.
I just want to say I love that presentation. Thank you so much. Really great to have the positive spin, and that's definitely uplifting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much for saying that.
And I would like to also mention, if anyone is interested in looking at electrical cars, check the website of MCE. And they have the complete information of all the incentives you can receive if you are considering changing your car for an electrical car. And in Lafayette, I live in Lafayette. I am member of the Environmental Task Force, and we are discussing specifically the electrification of the new development that is planned for the next 20 years. And we are very regularly, we are meeting to discuss about electrical chargers. Also, I own the Rising Loafer Cafe and Bakery, and we operate 100% sustainable. And my dear presenter, we should support small business people that are local. Starbucks is not local. Starbucks belong to the other state next door and take investment away from small business operations like myself. They are my competition. So you come and drink coffee in my coffee shop, or you drink coffee in a mom and pop shop locally.
Maria, you're absolutely right. That was a terrible example, and I will never say that again, because I completely agree with you. I actually don't go to Starbucks, so, but thank you for saying that. You're absolutely right. We need to support local business, all local businesses.
Leslie, I also just wanted to echo thanks. A great presentation. You've got me ready to go back to the survey and move me up to, I think at least very hopeful. A question. I think it was Paul Hawken in the movie, and I think I've seen this list before. I think Project Drawdown created this list of big actions that could be taken, if I'm not mistaken, like reduce or eliminate refrigerants is number
Yes.
one on their list.
Yeah.
And then another interesting one is educate girls across. So these are probably at more of a world level, but I guess maybe I'm curious about the refrigerants one and where we can go with that even locally.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. I mean, as we think about, it's getting warmer, people are going to be buying air conditioners, for instance. And Maria can maybe speak to this as well. Businesses that have large refrigeration, restaurants and coffee shops and markets, those refrigeration systems leak a lot, not just the usual, I forget what they're called off the top of my head, but they also leak, a lot of bad stuff, greenhouse gases. And so, yes, refrigerants is a huge piece of this. And while you might look at that top 10 list from Project Drawdown and say, well, educating girls, yes, globally. I mean, the Project Drawdown book is a global set of solutions. So it's that pick and choose, like what works for us here. And I would, of course, say educating girls is just as important as educating boys. It's not as critical an issue because we're pretty well there, right? But refrigerants, supporting wind, and there's all kinds of wind, they call it wind energy conversion systems, which is, a ridiculous technical name, but it's windmills, but it's not just windmills. There are rotating blades that are just like tall tubes. There are all kinds of oscillating approaches. And I think it was in the movie, but maybe not. Maybe it was in something else I saw recently. The idea of, instead of having offshore wind and these massive windmills offshore, a boat that is rocking, a big, like a repurposed single hull oil tanker repurposed. So it's rocking. And as it's rocking, just like our watches, our movement charges our watches, winds our watches. That's another way of generating power. That's brilliant. I hadn't thought about that one. So, there are all of these tools and technologies. And I think that there's a lot of money on the sidelines in the venture capital world and social impact investing. And for us to be aware of those things and pushing for them to happen, encouraging businesses to do this, encouraging our town council or our county supervisors to push for these things, that I think that will have a huge impact. But it comes down to transport. I mean, the big stuff here in the Bay Area is transportation. So making safe streets for bicycles, encouraging carpooling, walking, biking, and then public transportation. We have something like 19 public transportation districts in 9 counties. It's crazy. Talk about herding cats and trying to have, some kind of coherent plan that is, all 9 Bay Area counties. And the MTA tries, but that's the sort of thing that we also have to be pushing. So yeah, 80 solutions in the book, and probably 30 of them or so are things that we can implement here. So,
Leslie, do you know anything about AC Transit in Oakland that has a fleet of hydroelectrical buses for the last 10 or 20 years? How accessible is that technology for the other public transportation? If you know anything, can you share?
Yeah, this is really exciting. And we want to hang on to the Biden administration because a lot of money is coming from the Department of Energy, DOE, the other DOE. Yes, there's lots of different hydrogen technology now. Brown or dirty hydrogen is what has been used because the process of splitting the electrons, right, splitting hydrogen away from those two oxygen molecules, water, is very energy intensive. There are now, we actually generate more renewable energy than we use many times. So that becomes green energy if we use it to electrolyze hydrogen. But something that I just learned is that methane, which we have way too much of, is a better source of making hydrogen because it has not one hydrogen atom like water does, it has 4 hydrogen atoms, right? So boom, hello, that would be, you know, a double win, right? We're reducing methane, we're actually using it instead of just letting it go up into the atmosphere, and we're getting hydrogen from it. So there is a lot of technology that's just breaking through. Almost green hydrogen is almost ready to kind of scale bigger than it is. I have huge hopes for that. And the Biden administration, the Department of Energy have massive loans to like school districts and public transportation districts to start buying as a loan, not for free, hydrogen and electric buses. So hydrogen is just another type of storage, right? Like a lithium battery. So, you know, we need other technologies besides lithium.
And Leslie, we actually had a question in the chat about if you could show the slide again that showed on the left side our choices for how we can get our electricity. Oh,
did I show that? Was that in here? Yeah, so I'll just say it because I'm leery of pulling my whole slide deck up. I'm one of those kind of Zoom neophytes, kind of. So I always worry about putting my my whole deck up. But anyway, so renewable energy, 100% renewable energy, all including PG&E, but all of the community choice energy programs in the Bay Area have the option to purchase 100% renewable energy. Most of that, I think all of the portfolios comes from large hydro and solar and wind. So you can sign up for that. It is the cost, I'm going to say this one more time, Maria, and I swear I'll never say it again. It's the cost of about a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Maybe more economical at your shop, but that's a big thing. And for instance, MCE, Marine Clean Energy, is projected to be, as just their basic product that you get no matter what, to be 100% renewable energy next year. Now, because of the drought, that's probably going to shift the hydroelectric power. So we'll see how the portfolios change a little bit. But yeah, so get in touch with PG&E if you're a PG&E customer. You shouldn't be, but if you are, that's okay. Or check in with your community choice energy program. I think in Contra Costa, it's MCE. It could also be East Bay Community Power if you're in Alameda.
Thank you, Leslie. And is it possible to get a copy of the slides?
Yeah, great. Yeah. I'm going to take my talking points out and share a PDF with the team, and you are welcome to do whatever you want with them.
Wonderful.
I hope they're useful.
People interested.
I hope they're useful.
Leslie, what else do you know about the hydroelectrical fuel cells to store the solar energy and be free from PG&E?
Right. So the CPUC, the California Public Utilities Commission, is the one that regulates microgrids. So, and how the utilities and the community choice programs interact with their customers. So there's something called the over the fence rule, which is problematic because you can do a microgrid essentially on a piece of property that has multiple buildings, but you can't then share that what you're generating. Let's say you've got solar on your roof or you've got a windmill. You can't share what you generate beyond your own property. The CPUC is really struggling with this, and a lot of us are helping them struggle. And the the California Energy Commission is working on this as well. That has to shift. We need to be able, especially with power shutoffs and blackouts, we need to be able to isolate and take care of ourselves. So if you have an electric vehicle and you have an inverter and you have battery storage in your home, you can keep the lights on throughout for days if you have solar on your roof. So there's ways of doing these things, but they're expensive. And not everyone can have an EV, an inverter, solar on the roof, and a battery storage in their garage. So how do we then start scaling the idea more broadly? So I'm working on a project in one of our communities here in Marin. We're putting canopy solar over a parking area with EV charging connected to that, and battery storage for a school, a K-8 school that is an emergency disaster shelter designated. So this will keep the lights on when there's power failures in the community, but we're not able to share that throughout the entire town. So it's incremental. It's like, this is the demonstration and everyone's going to want it. And then there's going to be pressure politically and economically in the market to do this bigger and better and more broadly. So fight the good fight.
There is hope.
Great. And we have time for about 1 or 2 more questions. And please, anyone who has not asked a question yet, feel free to ask one. And if not, Leslie, is there some contact information that you can share with everyone so that they can reach out to you if they come up with anything afterwards?
Absolutely. So I'd like to go back to my last slide. let me show you. Let me see if I can do this. I probably can't do it. Let me see.
And while you're doing that, we had a comment from Eleanor who's asking if she could get a copy of your talking points for the column for the Rossmore News. I just wanted to make sure you saw that.
Sure, I didn't see that, but I'm going to move to Rossmore, just so you know. I'm going to be moving. I think what you guys are doing is terrific. I know Marcia McLean. She used to live here in Marin, and she's a wonderful person. So I'm just really impressed with what you guys are doing. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen really quick. We do that, and then we do this. Lisa was a huge help to me. Okay, here we go. Here is my contact information. And I would encourage you to go to the website, and it's pretty easy to remember, www.drawdownbayarea.org. And you connect with me at info@drawdownbayarea.org. And if you go to the website, I encourage you to download the Climate Action Now app. And I'm on the board. I was part of creating some of the content. I take no credit. It's beautiful, amazing engineers and designers and students and interns worked so hard on it. So I'd love to know what you think about it. But I'd also love for you guys to sign up through Drawdown Bay Area's website. We're just trying to track where people are coming from. But you can also go to, your favorite wherever you buy apps, whether it's Apple or Chrome or whatever, Android, and you can find the Climate Action Now app there as well. So, and it's fun, it's free, and it's really interactive, really fun. So I hope to hear from all of you.
Thank you so much, Leslie. That was a great discussion, everyone. Thanks again to Leslie Alden of Drawdown Bay Area, and to all of you for participating tonight in the Green Sofa Cinema Series. If you want to get more involved with any of our sponsors or Drawdown Bay Area, feel free to contact them. And we hope you'll join us Wednesday, September 15th at 7 p.m. for the next film discussion and speaker event in the Green Sofa Cinema Series. We'll discuss Disobedience, a short documentary produced by 350.org about the role of civil disobedience in battling the climate crisis. Watch for notice in your email and on social media, and please spread the word to your friends. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you all so much. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thanks, Maria.
Thank you. That was great.